to send a value into a function by passing it a parameter. But what if we want to get a value back from a function? So I have my main here. It's asking for a number to be inputted and it's capturing it into a variable. I'm going to make a little function. And what I'm going to do now is instead of putting void here, I'm going to put a return type. I'm going to say this function is going to give me back an integer. And I'm just going to do something really simple like square it. And I'm going to pass it a number to work with. And all this guy's going to do is take this number and multiply it by itself. And in front of that, I'm going to put the word return. And what that means is when this function gets called, this number is going to come in, it's going to do the math, it's going to get the result, and it's going to return the result. Okay? Where's it going to return it to? It's going to return it to wherever I call this function from. So down here, when I call this function, I'm going to pass it whatever integer I want. This doesn't have to match in name. So if it's called value down here and num up here, it's fine so long as inside these curlies I'm referring to it as num. So whatever number they typed in, it's going to get thrown up here. It's going to multiply it by itself. Okay. Now I want to show you a couple things. When I take this integer and I multiply integer times integer, the result of that is an integer, which is why the word I chose to put here instead of void is int. Okay. If this were a double coming in and I multiplied a double times a double, the result would be a double, so I'd put double here. Okay. If this were a string and I was doing some kind of like word manipulation, I would put the word string there. And so the word that I choose as the return type, which is what this is, has to represent the information that's being returned. Okay. Now, if I'm doing something simple, I can do it in one line. I can also like make a temporary intermediate local variable to this and return that. It's going to do the same thing no matter how I do it. Okay. Now I want to show you something. I have called this function down here. As soon as it hits this line, it's going to jump up, it's going to do this stuff, it's going to throw the answer back. If I run this right now, nothing happened. And that's because I haven't taken any action with the value that came back. Okay? We're playing sort of like a game of catch with this function. I'm throwing this value up here. This thing's throwing the result back. If I don't catch it and do something with it, then I lose it forever. So I got three options when I call a value returning function. And the way I can tell it's value returning is that this is not the word void, it's a different word. My first option is I can, if I don't need to use it a whole lot more, I can print it immediately. And that would look like this. So let's verify that that works. Okay, 5. 25 is the square of 5. That's right. All right. All right. So my first option is print it. My second option, in fact, let me record these. 1 is print. 2 is save in a variable. So maybe I don't want to just get it on the screen. I'm going to need it later. So I can set a variable equal to this call. And then I can do whatever I want to it. Let's say we subtract 1 from it. And then I can print it. That way I have it after the call is finished. Whereas if I just print it, I won't have it to work with. Let's just verify that this is going to give me the right number. So if I enter 3 times 3 is 9. If I subtract 1 off that, it's 8. Yeah, cool, it's working. Okay, so that's my second option. My third option is use it immediately in a condition. Okay, well, so what does that look like? All right, so let's say if the square of the value is less than 10, then we can do something, whatever. Number must be 3 or below. That has to be true if the square of it is less than 10. Let's verify that this works. Okay. 4, we should get nothing. Cool. Let's try 2. 2. There's my output. Okay. So that's my third option. Now, if I'm going to write an if-else-if statement and I have several specific things checked, I don't want to force the computer to do this work over and over and over, so I would use a combination of 2 and 3, and it would look, if need more than once for a condition, use to, and then check. So for example, I would say int result equals this, then use the result here, then use it again in my else if. Okay, that way I get my output that I want, but my computer only has to do the work one time, right? So one time it throws it up to this function to do the calculation. I don't throw it up once here and once here, and then if I have more else, it gets worse and worse. I want to save the computer time as well whenever I can.